That's the man Kofi Kenata with his fourth consecutive win as Songwriter of the Year. And it was actually this song behind the scenes that won him his fourth award as Songwriter of the Year. So for the last 4 years, he's been the reigning songwriter, and that means a lot. But that's great music as well. And as we're talking about hustling and all the things that people go through, unemployment, eventually find a job and then COVID comes in and you're furloughed or you lose your job. So many other issues as well that affect young people. And that all ties into the economy of each country. And so especially for Africa and for Ghana as well, we are all very much aware of how COVID dealt with our economy so badly. But there is an institution that for the last 18 or so years has been advising African governments on economic matters. And so it has put together the best of economists, researchers and support staff. And they come up with reports, they have conferences and meetings, and they try to advise these governments on the way forward or how to manage the economy and spur on the growth of the economy of African countries. And this will be the third report that they will be putting out since this institution was put up or put together. In 2014, the Africa Center for Economic Transformation released its report, and it was entitled Growth with Depth, the 2014 African Transformational Report. And then in 2017, they released another report on how to grow the economy, and they said that we needed to focus on how to harness agric in, or on the continent so that we, through innovation, can grow the economy. Now they're back with their next report, which will be released later today, and they're talking about African integration. And I'm sure for a lot of you who think about it, you might say, but that's why we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and that was launched in January 2021 to promote free trade across the African countries. But they're saying that let's look beyond trade. There are so many other aspects of our economy that we can work on if we come together, providing jobs for young people and all the other important things that we can do, climate risk and all of that, so that we can grow our economy further. And so what does this report really entail? And if they say look beyond trade, what exactly should we be focusing on? And that's the conversation that we're having this morning. I'm honored to have in the studios with me Dr. Edward K. Brown. He's the Senior Director, Research and Policy Advisory at the African Center for Economic Transformation. And also Belinda Ayamgha is the Communications Manager, and she'll tell us all about the conference that's taking place later today. But I'll start off with Doc. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
me. I hope I gave the right information
Absolutely.
With regards to
Absolutely.
what exactly is happening. But first of all, I just want to understand, when we talk about this report that's coming out, that's called what, the AC3?
The African Transformation Report.
Okay, that's coming out today. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, the report itself, the title is Integrating to Transform. And the objective of this report is to bring to the fore the importance of championing Africa's economic transformation by harnessing regional opportunities.
Yeah.
And more importantly, to heighten integration, collaboration, and also leadership, particularly dedicated and visionary leadership. The objective then is what? To create jobs, to foster innovation, and to mitigate climate risks.
Okay.
So this report embodies that whole agenda of integrating to transform.
I see.
Which implies that we need to come together to harness the synergies of collaboration in order for us to transform.
Interesting, but then it says that then we need to look beyond trade. Yes. And like I mentioned, so afterwards, or came into being in January 2021, and that's supposed to create that conducive environment for African countries to trade freely. Especially because when you look at the statistics, it says that Africa accounts for just about 2% of global trade. Yes. And then about 17% of the African exports within Africa. There's only 17%. That's against what, like 68% in Europe. Yes. And so clearly there's a problem which AFTA is trying to resolve.
Absolutely.
But you're saying that let's look beyond that because there are other things that to focus on. So what should AFTA be focusing on then?
No. What we say is that giving AFTA offers an opportunity for countries to integrate more. Now, even to increase interregional trade, we need to collaborate. We need to ensure that the countries are harmonizing their policies and programs.
Yeah.
And what we observe today, why Africa economies are not transforming, why we don't have intra-regional higher or increase in intra-Africa trade is because our economies are not transforming. Okay. And what we've observed over the last 20 years is that economic transformation has either stalled or slowed down completely.
Yeah.
And this is measured by ACET's indicators of growth with depth. Diversification, export competitiveness, increasing productivity, technological upgrading, and all this together would help to improve human well-being.
Okay.
So now, if we take that as a measure of transformation, what we're saying is that the majority of African countries are actually not transforming at all. So this report is arguing that in order for African economies to transform, they need to collaborate more. They are not collaborating enough to unleash the synergies that regional cooperation offers in order for countries to transform. Now, when we say looking beyond trade, we are not saying that you should forget about the trade protocols and all those things. In fact, integrating to transform and going beyond trade means that you want to reinforce the underlying drivers of regional integration and trade and transformation. And these are what we call the regional public goods, like transport corridors. You cannot increase intra-African trade if you don't have smooth, efficient superhighways that transport goods and services across countries. So it's very fundamental. So looking beyond trade doesn't mean that you should not deal with trade.
Of course.
The trade rules and regulations and so on. But it means that you need to look at some of the fundamental drivers of trade, you know, which is transport corridors, which is the whole issue of cross-border digital connectivity. For example, in East Africa today, roaming charges are almost very, very low because they have come together. Southern Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda on the one area network. That is offering tremendous opportunities for businesses and commerce to grow. And digital connectivity is increasing financial inclusion. The cost of roaming has come down significantly. Likewise, in West Africa, this has to happen in order to. So all these things are going to promote intra-African trade. So the objective is not to do away with the trade, is to buttress the trade. So this report is arguing strongly that in order for intra-African trade to increase, in order for African countries to transform, they need to collaborate a lot more on these regional public goods.
I see. For Ghana especially, how do we address some of these issues? Because unemployment is quite high. I mean, 4.6% of, you know, the total labor force. That is high because there are a lot of young people. And because of COVID as well, you'd see that more people have lost their jobs. Then there are the climatic risks as well and many of the other issues. If we have to think of Ghana and how to fix this problem, what would you say?
Ghana has to think regionally, but act local. When we're talking about employment, unemployment, and so on, if your private sector is not growing, if they're not export competitive, then you cannot increase employment. So to increase employment, you need to increase the capacity of the private sector to be sustainable. And this, you need the markets, you need the transport, the infrastructure, and all those things that can be better addressed through regional collaboration. So Ghana cannot operate in isolation. If it wants to create more jobs, then it has to integrate more into the regional market. Now, climate issues. We all know that climate change and climate risk, you know, that respects no boundaries. So how can you be dealing with climate issues on your own? You need to come together to collaborate to ensure that there are synergies being created through common policies and approaches that will enable the economies to grow. You know, you talk about the riparian issues. Take Burkina Faso and Ghana on the Volta. When Burkina Faso opens its floodgates, it inundates the whole of the south. So there's the need for greater collaboration to ensure that you manage the riparian issues appropriately in order to derive the synergies that is being provided by the river basin. So collaboration across countries, cross-country collaborations is very, very important. And many of our countries, including Ghana, even Nigeria, as big as it is, needs collaboration. And Ghana, the economies are fragmented, but the markets are so small. You know. And for example, a few years ago, many of these companies in the country were moving outside because of policy issues that were not very conducive, right? Now, if you harmonize your programs, like, for example, agro-processing. Agro-processing depends on increasing productivity in agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay, and the amount of inputs that you need for an agro-processing factory to grow and to be competitive may be much higher. So you need to source materials from elsewhere, Cote d'Ivoire or elsewhere. But if the transportation and the rules of engagement are not harmonized, how do you do that?
How do you do that? And shortly, I'll come to you, Belinda, but just my final question to you, because then leadership also plays a very important role in all of this.
Yes, absolutely.
So for you, what should leadership look at? What exactly should they do, and how does leadership play that role?
I think leadership, we have to look at leadership at all levels. But of course, we start from the top. You know, leadership at the top, you know, leadership, private sector, academia, NGOs, and the media and all that. But what is important is that leadership should have the vision of regional integration. It should be thinking outside the box. It should be providing the strategic orientation of what it takes to transform the economy.
Okay.
So if you take a country like Rwanda, okay, I cited an example because I think it reflects the kind of visionary leadership that is required.
They have, yes.
Okay? That they recognize that the economies are small. So they are working assiduously with their members, with their member countries, to ensure harmonizations of a variety of things.
Yeah.
So leadership must think regional, but act local. In other words, when they go and sign all those protocols at the AU, when they come back, they now need to try to domesticate, to ensure that these protocols are aligned with their policies, and if not, how do you ensure harmonization? How do you create local stakeholders that are fully engaged so that you can understand what the dynamics are? You have a problem-driven approach, which would allow you to be able to act local but thinking regional. So your national plans must include a strategic approach to regional integration.
Absolutely, I agree. And this is why I bring Belinda in, because there's a forum that will take place later today, and that's when the reports will be put out. Tell me about this forum.
Right. So today at 1 p.m. GMT, we will have the African Transformation Forum. So ACET has flagship events and flagship reports. You mentioned that the ATR is the third report that we've come out with. But that is our flagship report. We have several other reports that we come up with on an annual or in a year on different issues, right? The forum today is using the title of the report, which is Integrating to Transform. So essentially, it will be discussing the issues that are coming out of this latest report. We will be having a keynote address by the Vice President of Ghana, Dr. Baumia, and we'll have two interesting panels. So the first panel will be made up of a group of people that ACET works with that we call the Transformation Leadership Panel. As you heard from Dr. Brown, leadership is very critical, and at ACET we do believe that leadership is important at all spheres. So we'll have a panel of transformation leaders, which is chaired by the former president of Liberia, Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. That panel will have Rita Roy of the MasterCard Foundation. We'll have Dolly Kabanda, who is an independent consultant. We'll have a representative from the World Bank, Hafez Ghanem. We'll have the Executive Secretary of the UNECA, Vera Songwe. They will be discussing basically how do we implement this report? How do we make sure that Africa is integrating more, is collaborating more to make sure that these challenges that we've identified in climate, in providing jobs, in spurring innovation, how are we making sure that we're actually working together to address these challenges? The other interesting panel that we'll have is one on leadership, right? Usually at our other events, we've had a panel of heads of states, but we realized that leadership should be at all levels. So not only the political leadership, but leadership in private sector, leadership in youth, leadership in civil society and all that. So this particular panel will be made up of reps from all of these different levels of leadership. So that all of them are talking about how this issue that we're discussing applies to them, to their field, and how they can lead to make sure that we're meeting the targets that we've identified. So that's happening today at 1 p.m. It's a virtual event, so you can join anywhere from the world. Where to register is africantransformation.community.tc. So if you go to africantransformation.community.tc, that's the registration page, and you can join us. You can interact with people. So far, we have about 500 people who have registered to participate. So we're expecting that there will be a very insightful session, and that following up from there will be some concrete actions at all levels to identify and address some of these issues that we're talking
Definitely.
about.
So please make sure that you're part of it. And would you be streaming on Facebook or?
Yes, we'll be streaming live on Facebook and on our YouTube page. We'll also carry it live on our website, ACETforAfrica.com. On social media, you can find us at ACET for Africa on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter as well.
And I do hope that a lot more young people also partake in this, because like you said, leadership is on different phases. And it's important that if we are the future leaders, we need to start learning now on how to make the continent a better place for all of us. And so I'm looking forward to it. Doc, your final words before we wrap up on this.
Well, just to once again, indicate that I think this event is going to be critical. We want to see people think a little bit more outside the box. We are more or less prone often to look internally, but the solutions to many of these problems lie in working together. And I think this is the main essence of, or the message, the key message of this report, that we are isolated. Individual countries partitioned, about 100 years ago, and we're still focusing on those small enclaves. And we need to begin to think a little bit regionally in order to be able to address our local problems.
Absolutely. And so integration is key, and please make sure that you take part in the African Transformation Forum that will hold at 1 p.m. today. Thank you so much. I've been speaking to Dr. Edward K. Brown. He's a Senior Director for Research and Policy Advisory at the Africa Center for Economic Transformation. And Belinda Ayamgha is a Communications Manager in charge, of course, with regards to the event. And so if you need any details, you know what to do. Just log on to their social media pages or get on YouTube, and you can be part of the conversation and share your thoughts on it as well. We have entertainment coming up. This is still TV3 NewDay. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. We'll be back with more.